Okay, we're live. There's a bit of a delay, and I probably should have thought of that before I went live, but I guess too late for that now. I also realized that I don't have any of my music open, which is a bit of an oversight on my part, but that's okay. I will yap for just a few minutes, and then we'll get to it. Yeah, kind of a weird week when it comes to music this time around. I honestly, going into yesterday, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to talk about. Not because I hadn't listened to music, but simply because, simply because the music I had listened to hadn't really left like a huge mark on me. I definitely listened to a lot, but okay. So today we're going to start with I completely forgot to open all the tabs. Sorry. It's been kind of, I can't say hectic, but it's been kind of a busy day in some regards. And also, this week is Maslenica, for those of you who don't know, which is basically, it celebrates the end of winter, and it's when everybody eats a lot of blini, and blini are, well, they are basically crepes, but still, eat them with all sorts of stuff, and it's quite tasty, quite delicious, and that is what I was doing. Was eating blini before I got here. So we're gonna start today, and I'm just gonna let everybody know right off the bat. We're gonna start with electronic, and then we're going to take a look at some, I guess, more experimental stuff, and then we will get into rock / metal, and then we'll hit up pop, and then we'll end with rap, oddly enough, which is something that we haven't run into yet, but it was just one of those weeks, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually think as I said, I included the oh my god, yeah, I really wish I would have done this before I turned the VPN on. This is going to take forever. I think the inclusion of some more experimental albums this week are perhaps why it felt so strange to me, because I don't listen to a lot of avant-garde stuff, but there were a few albums this week that I do feel are worth mentioning, and I wanted to make sure that I got around to them. So you're gonna have to give me just a second here. I'm assuming that there's like nobody watching this live right now, so I think, yeah. Oh, there are 2 people watching it. YouTube's telling me the bit rate is too high, but I don't really know what that means, and I don't care. I would assume that's not a bad thing. I'm kind of rambling, but that's because I'm trying to do this as fast as humanly possible so that I can actually get to, the actual music. But because there's only 2 people watching, I'm assuming it's family, maybe friends. So anybody who's watching this after the fact can just skip ahead, because I will put chapters in. Yeah. All right, I have just a few left here. And by a few, I mean like 6. So give me just a second. I knew I was forgetting to do something. I had, one of the last things I did was make sure that the links to all the albums were in the description, but then I forgot to actually open the music for us, which is a bit of a whoopsie, but that's okay. I actually did, all right, well, last few here. Upon listening to some of these albums again this afternoon, I will say, while putting everything together and kind of getting ready. I think there actually are a few that might like hold up well in the long run. I'll talk about those obviously when I get to them. But yeah. And I think there might be one album this week which may or may not be a top one for the year. So I think I've got everything open here. I'm just waiting for the last one. Also having like a bunch of tabs open slows everything down. So, okay. Ooh, all right. Yeah, that was not great, but does the video look okay? I keep getting all these messages from Google, or not Google, from YouTube. I guess it is Google from YouTube telling me the stream is too much. The bitrate's too much, but I don't know what to do about that because I haven't really dealt with this. All right, anyway, forget it. We are going to the streaming. Yep, there we are. So I just realized I'm out of the frame there. And I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller this time. I realized last time I was quite large, so we'll go with that. That seems good. All right, so we are starting out with, like I said, with electronic music. And the first album, or I guess EP, it's going to be a lot of EPs with electronic music, is by an artist called Happyface. And with the UK Pills EP, just 3 short tracks attempting to convey the joy and respect that the artist feels for the British EDM scene. And it gives their own view on the well-known UK sound. Each track is a little bit different, has its own vibe, has its own atmosphere, but they're all fun. And while I'm waiting for this to load, I will say that the Bandcamp version of this release has a pretty solid Kendrick Lamar remix from one of his earlier albums. But so World the Dub has got the dub sound. Not a huge surprise there, obviously. So we'll jump ahead. Except the loading. Oh. Oh, the buffering feels like the age before high-speed internet. That's fantastic. But yeah, you know, if you're familiar with the UK techno scene, this is gonna sound familiar, but it's good. It's good. First track too. We'll give my style just a quick listen. Definitely different. It's not the dub, and as you can guess, the dub funk is going to have a different sound too. So it's 3 tracks that all have their own identity, but they're all nice. They're all fun. Fun is maybe not the right word, but well produced. Jump ahead. Wait for the buffering. I'm going to buffer just a second. So yeah, Happyface, UK Pills EP, just 3 tracks dedicated to the UK sound. Up next, we have Jetelmen with the Feel It EP. Here we have 5 tracks as well as a remix. And it's just some of that hard-hitting late 90s, early 2000s house music. And it just it's pretty energetic. Just kind of makes you want to move. And once it buffers, maybe you'll recognize that sound. Not that, I mean, like that's the 4 to the floor bass line, obviously. And just gonna jump into the middle of it and let it buffer for a second. That was obviously not enough, so we'll jump back. God, perfect timing. A lot of nice vocal samples throughout that one as well too. The title track obviously is a highlight. All right, I hate to do it. I'm just going to jump ahead, but we know that's going to happen. What's going to happen with the buffering, so. It's an old sound, but that's okay. So yeah, if you're in the mood for some hard, fast house music, then yeah, Jetelmen's Feel It EP is gonna do it for you. Up next, we got Mac Passion. This is an artist who released an album last year, Nihilist, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It was an eclectic mix of things, and this one, Control 2, is the second one in his Control series. It's one guy out of Petrozavodsk, which is in the north, Petersburg, up in that area, and it feels like he's making music out of Petrozavodsk, and I don't really know how to explain it other than it's kind of bleak and desolate, but kind of also beautiful in that northern sort of way. I mentioned the Nihilist LP from last year, and this is what I had to say about it in my notes, was that it's music that wanders from ambient to IDM, from breakbeat and glitches to UK garage, to melancholic tracks that feel like moderate. This EP here is a bit more focused. It's more focused on that restrained sound. It's introspective, though there are glimpses of some of the more energetic aspects that I had in my notes from his Nihilist LP. It's part relaxing, part brain food, and it honestly feels like it was recorded in a small Soviet-style kitchen, which it probably was. So let's give it just a little bit of a listen once it decides to load, obviously. If it decides to load. I should perhaps be a bit more. All right, we'll try a different track. It's going to be a short stream if none of the tracks load. There we go. It kind of fits the picture orally, right? The sound is... All right, we'll jump ahead just a bit. And then we'll wait a second. Melodic, haunting, words we could use to describe it. But not uninviting. Right? Get into something that's perhaps a bit more quartet or even caribou. All right, and I want to pull up old tape too, because this was one of the tracks I had highlighted as well, and it does not appear like it wants to play. Okay, Oh, nope, there it is. Okay. I'm just going to jump into the middle and let it buff for a second. You get the idea. Rhythmic, ethereal, what did I say? Haunting, blah, blah, blah. Like, I said, it's something that you can zone out to, but it won't let you completely, little rhythmic aspects like this won't let you completely wander off into your thoughts. Or they'll attempt to pull you back at any rate. So yeah, that's the Control 2 EP by Mac Passion, who is he's quite active. I would assume that we'll probably see another Control 3 EP out of him at some point this year. Maybe a full length, I don't know. Up next, we have the final electronic album this week. It was a short one. This one's, I guess, a full album. We got 7 tracks here. This is YDM by youkee. And what we have here is some rather futuristic IDM. Although there are elements of the UK scene here as well, like UK garage, UK drill. But there's also a lot of experimental sounds going on here. Again, it's music that you can just kind of let your thoughts wander to, but it will be interrupted by catchy little beats and, you know, things that are going to want to get you up and moving a little bit. So we're going to attempt to preview the last 2 tracks here. I can't even open the artwork. Okay, there we go. Maybe. There it is. Also, YDM, I'm pretty sure, is like a youkee dance music. IDM, intelligent dance music, right? This one's actually loading well. A lot going on here, right? It's dense. A lot of different sounds. And last track, Retrospect. I'll see if it loads. Or how long it takes for it to load, I guess is. Kind of that big beat sound on this track as well. But reinterpreted a little bit. We got the So yeah, that's YDM by youkee. So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily one electronic album or EP that I would put above the rest. I just kind of ordered them almost in length, I guess. So, but moving along, we're getting into, I guess, what I would call a small experimental window, or what might just be, I might just label like other albums that don't quite fit into other categories, or they might fit into them, but they just don't really feel like they are a part of them. This is a 4-part Cure by Jason Calhoun and Foresteppe. Now, Jason Calhoun is a artist in the U.S., but Foresteppe is a Russian artist who works with him. No, from like a distance, I guess. So, but yeah, what we have here is it's basically solo kind of improv piano, and there are light accompanying electronics and pretty extensive field recordings. The sound recordings or the field recordings are all basically connected to the end of winter, early parts of spring, and that's what it sounds like. This album sounds like the walking through slowly disappearing snow on a clear day in late February, right? Sun is shining, birds are chittering, spring is in the air, and just it has that sound of reflecting on life and enjoying it as the seasons change. So you can hear the feet on the snow. I'll just jump ahead a little bit. It's very minimalistic, so there's no denying that, but by Jason Calhoun and Foresteppe. Thanks, OBS. I'm pretty sure you were running this whole time. And yeah, Foresteppe is an artist out of Russia who provided the field recordings, and the electronics for it. Jason Calhoun is on the piano there. So, all right. So this next one, Oleg Barabаш, and it's an EP, Sadu, Цвесть. Now, this guy's basically a poet, and just kind of an eclectic mix of songs. It's very a mishmash of genres, if you will. Excited. It's basically a poet who has decided to put his work to music. For those of you who can't understand Russian, at the very least, you're going to get a taste of some kind of modern, artsy, underground Russian rock. Like I said, that mishmash of genres and instrumentation. But for people who can understand Russian, you'll get a lot of interesting imagery and metaphors as well. So give it a listen here real fast. Oh. Maybe we'll give it a listen. More of a traditional Russian rock sound from what we normally hear here. So a little different, and then the first track as well here, when it loads. It's kind of artsy. And we jump into this sort of post-punk as well. Feels like it could have been on Saddle Creek if there was a Russian equivalent to Saddle Creek Records, I suppose. So yeah, that's the Sadu, Цвесть EP by Олег Барабаш. And the last experimental one is one I actually thought to highlight at the end, but it didn't really. I figured I would just put it here in the middle. This is the album «Не о том речь» by Вежливый, отказ. Вежливый отказ is a group that has been around for 40 years now. They started in 1985, 1986 in that, OBS, thank you. But yeah, it's quite experimental in terms of melody, instrumentation. The lyrics are quite poetic. Singing style can be a bit odd at times. But yeah, it works. I still see their concerts advertised. Not so much on billboards and little flyers around the city anymore, but you still see it popped up occasionally online. It's not something I necessarily would choose to listen to, but it's worth pointing out just for their longevity, and also the fact that it's challenging music at times, which is good to listen to. Not all the time, but listen to it all the time, you're just pretentious. Very arrhythmic here. You can hear the singing style being a bit unusual. A lot of different things happening, just even with the sparse instrumentation right here. And we get like a little John Zorn style moment. So, and then we'll check out Грустная тема. So, I mean, I think you get the idea from the first track, but I'll highlight it a bit further. Maybe. I mean, some people are going to find this hella annoying. I get that, but it's kind of fun. A little jazzy, little experimental, avant-garde, all that fun stuff. So, yeah, and again, these guys have been at it for 40 years. I think they had 2 members die recently, so they're still plugging along. So yeah, Вежливый отказ, and the album is «Не о том речь». So that's it for the experimental bit. We are going to move on to rock and metal, which there are quite a few releases for, but I don't know, quite a few EPs. I think that's part of the reason. So the first one up is сознании, the EP from the group Rакетбол. It's just standard Russian punk. It's really not much to write home about. It's fine. But I realized as I was listening to this that so many Russian punk groups, the vocalists all have the same kind of nasally way of singing things. I don't really know what it's all about. But when he comes in, you'll, I think, recognize what I'm talking about. So yeah, 4 tracks like that. I gotta check. So yeah, 4 tracks like that. I gotta check the connection again. Yeah, we're all good still. We're still connected. We're still connected. Everything's working. But everything's working. But Ay, ay, ay. I don't know why it keeps... Let me check with the... All right, I'm just going to, I guess, deal with that next time. I'm going to check the stream rate. All right, anyway, going back to the... So yeah, that was Сознание EP by Racquetball. All right, the next one up here is an actual album. Just Like Me Part 1, and the group is Revel. English lyrics, you can tell maybe from the artwork that we're going for kind of a throwback sound in some parts. I guess the art, there it is. Okay. Although it looks like that is AI artwork up close, which I hope it is. I hope that person has eyeballs. Maybe they just took their group photo and then ran it through an AI filter. Either way, I hate that. Anyway, yeah, gruff, smoky, female vocals, English lyrics. Musically, it sounds like something from the past, but I can't think of a specific decade that it sounds like it from. Maybe from the UK. The style, sound of this group in general was popular, quite popular here with groups, local groups, at least in Moscow, in the 2000s into the 2010s. It's a little bit like Britpop, but it's nice to still hear it around. It's basically well done radio rock with a bit of that garagey edge. Even though the lyrics aren't English, it does not mean that you'll be able to understand them. There's definitely a market for some people. I mean, or the market for such music exists. It's not bad. Again, it's not something I necessarily would maybe choose to listen to heavily, but it reminds me a lot of one of the bars that we frequented after I first moved to Moscow. So, feels like this group would have played there. And the musicianship is good, enjoyable. So yeah, that's Just Like Me Part 1 by Revel. Moving along, we have the BU EP by fondspidvagona, if I am pronouncing that correctly. Also, give it a second to load. So yeah, BU EP by fondspidvagona. This thing right here is so close to greatness. I'm not going to lie. It is heavy as fuck. It's just, I think, the mixing that brings it down. The guttural vocals are too high in the mix. There's a lot of other musical ideas which are realistically secondary to what's going on, and they just get pushed way the hell up to the front of everything. I don't know if this is the group's first album. I don't think it is. If you actually look at their previous works, it is just a oddball mix of categories. Like, yeah, I went through and listened to some of the other tracks. It's just weird hyper pop and some other nonsensical stuff. This is heavy. I don't know if they decided to make a switch or if this is just another gimmick that they're doing, but regardless, I hope they stick with it if this is just a gimmick, because it's a good sound, and just get ready, because when it starts, it starts. When it starts, obviously. And that could be... Okay. Like, they need to pull the vocals back just a tidge. Like, this part right here, this is heavy. Like the little electronics bouncing around in the background. It's a weird mix of stuff. So yeah, really some good ideas going on here. I quite like the cover art too. It's simple but effective. I don't like they took the still from whatever old film it was, but yeah, this is. I hope fondspidvagona stick with the sound and they start to develop it into their own. It would be very interesting to see some more from them. But this is a rather new group, so we'll have to see with that. The next group, however, is a very old group. Stemfade is the name of it, and it is a metalcore group out of Yekaterinburg that hasn't released anything since 2008. 17 years. I guess they were cryogenically frozen. I don't know how else to explain it. But for that reason, it has the older metalcore sound, something a little bit more like Killswitch Engage. So it's got that older sound as opposed to like sort of the modern metalcore sound. But these guys don't sound like they've missed a beat. They don't sound rusty at all. So, oh yeah, and the EP is Mraке Holodov. Kind of stereotypical artwork, let's be real, but okay, fair. They haven't been around for, what was it, 17 years, so. But like, this sounds like something I would have been rocking, just rocking the hell out of 17 years ago as is, so. So yeah, it sounds like kind of like old Killswitch and I don't know, All That Remains, the earlier albums. I'm gonna jump. So yeah, I know Killswitch is kind of in their. I think they're putting. I don't know if they put out a new album. Yeah, I think they just dropped a new album not long ago. But if that wasn't enough, then check out Mraке Holodov by Stemfade, their first EP in 17 years. All right, we're gonna switch gears. We're staying in the rock and kind of metal category, but we're gonna tone it down a little bit. This next one is Колыбельные для маленькой девочки, or Lullabies for a Small Girl. Took me a second to remember the word. By Snowblind Vision. Now, this is not available. If you notice in the links below the video, this is not yet available on Spotify, but you can pre-save it, but it's just not available yet. So if you are interested in it, you'll have to do a little Google search and it'll take you to a band link and then you can pre-save it on Spotify. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe put this in experimental. It's in that gray area between post-rock and ambient music. But it leans really heavily into the atmospheric elements on some of the tracks, but there's quite a bit of percussion Typically not drums, but drums are still there. A lot of reverb-drenched guitars. A piano is pretty regularly there throughout. There's even a trumpet on one of the tracks. So there's melodies throughout the whole thing. So it's definitely not ambient. There's also a lot of field recordings throughout the whole thing. It's nice headphone music, I would say. Just to put on and relax. Or if you have a good sound system, just put it on and lay on the couch and enjoy it. Although when I was making chili last weekend, this is what I was listening to. And it was also a fine choice for cooking. It even has the headphones right there, right? It's a hint. Don't know what book we're supposed to be reading. Arts. Studying the arts, because we're cultured individuals. I mean, I guess yeah. It's basically post rock. I'm gonna jump ahead a bit. There's the trumpet. And we'll check out another track too, just so you get the idea. There's that very atmospheric, ambient, minimalistic thing that I was talking about earlier. I would say that the first half tends to be a bit more reserved, as it is right now. But we'll jump ahead, because this whole track isn't like it. There we go. Peaceful. So yeah, like I said, this is Колыбельные, маленьких девочек by Snowblind Vision. It's currently not available on Bandcamp or Spotify or Apple Music, but it will be there in the near future. So if it's something you're interested in, copy the name. It's down in the description. It's the one that does not have a link to it yet. Okay. And then what you can do is you can pre-save it. But let me go ahead and do that. Okay. So going back to this. And up next, we have another kind of chill and relaxed one, which is Vazuza Meditation Club by Tonal Mentor. This is, again, basically post-rock, but it's a little bit less than post-rock. It's getting a more laid-back vibe. It's a duo making reflective, what they say, philosophical music. It's the type of music that I guess just gets them thinking. It's a weird mix of things. There are tracks that feel like there's flamenco guitar going on. There's tracks that have a drone atmosphere. There's like this dark ethno-folk type of sound as well. It alternates between this upbeat and animated, and then slow and contemplative. It's just back and forth. It's deceptively short. We have 6 tracks. They're all basically 5 minutes long, but it honestly feels like it's 15 minutes long when you put it on. This last week I was walking home and I was listening to this for part of the walk, and I would have to say that it is very meditative. It's good. I feel like this would be an album I would love to put on if I had to like drive cross country. It's got that sort of, I don't know, landscape, right? When you just see the countryside pass you by in the distance out of a car window. I guess it's meditative. It's that vibe. Artwork is, you know, it is what it is. Jump ahead a bit. It's not quite the flamenco that I was talking about before, but we went from very slow and reserved to this upbeat, energetic. And we'll check out the last track, youkee. It's nice. It's pleasant music, and it's definitely more upbeat than the last one. I'm gonna jump ahead here. There's that flamenco-esque sound again. And it kind of settles back down. So we have this back and forth, high energy, low energy, kind of very melodic and rhythmic, and then very atmospheric and drone-esque in parts. It goes just a constant push and pull. So yeah, that's the Vazuza Meditation Club by Tonal Mentor. So after a quick little aside there for quiet music, we're going to come back to something heavy. This next one is by the group Dark Illusion. It is their first album. It's a debut. Storono. So it says progressive metal. It's deathcore, basically. This is out of the far reaches of Russia, out of Barnaul. I'll be honest, not every track on this album did it for me. Some of them were definitely better than others. But for a debut album, it's a nice, respectable offering. And one of the things I will say is, for deathcore-esque album, there's a good amount of clean vocals, but they're delivered well, and they feel not forced. They feel like they should be on the track. So yeah, this is Storono by Dark Illusion. Artwork's pretty solid too, I'll give them that. Well, you'll see it in a second. Maybe? Is anything going to happen? There's the artwork. There's the music. Let's get to the kind of chorus. There are the cleans. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the albums like that, where they have some of the cleans on the choruses. Not all of them. Kult Krasного Glaza does not have that. The intro and the outro are instrumentals. But Zlые Kosti, Непокорные, I think Сердце Мертвеца, also, they all have that kind of clean thing. So, it's a good sound. It's a debut album, so we'll see if they continue to develop it, which I hope they do. I don't know what else there is to do in Barnaul, aside from make deathcore, evidently, but... Well, here's to hoping for more of that. All right, now we're getting into some of the heavier hitters here, and this is Healismus Aeternus by Crossbringer. This is hardcore black metal, blackened hardcore, black. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's got these really brutal female vocals. It's got a female lead singer, and it's in English. The lyrics are in English. It is chaotic. The songs shift around. They're quite long, right? Most of them are over 5 minutes long. And there's just a lot of wild energy here. It's basically like modern Converge in a way. That's what I kept thinking of Converge while listening to this, and that is pretty good. It's a good sound. I'm not a huge Converge fan, but it's definitely a sound a lot of people enjoy, and I think for part of the metal community here, this is going to be a big album this year. Like the dissonant guitars, that's that Converge. Let's jump ahead a little bit. I know that's going to be kind of intense for some people, but sorry. I guess you can take a breather here while Yandex decides to buffer the track. Maybe. It's heavy. And it's like it's played well, right? The guitars, the drums, the mixing. It's just well produced on all levels. So, we'll preview a little bit more, and then we'll move on to something. From here on out, this is the peak of heaviness, I will say, in terms of just brutality and atonality. And I know this is music that does not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but for those who do understand it and appreciate it, they're going to recognize something pretty solid and good here. Yeah, this part. It's almost progressive in a lot of ways. But yeah, anyway, Healismus Aeternus by Crossbringer, which I'm sure for many people in the Russian music community is going to be one of the top albums of the year. So I feel like I'm going to need to revisit it once or twice to kind of really let it get under my skin. But all right, up next we have EYJA. I think that's how we pronounce it. EYJA. EYJA. Вечное возвращение. This is post-rock. It's a debut post-rock album. And it's good, which doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes, oftentimes post-rock debuts are kind of whatever. There's no new revelations here in the genre. The playing is tight, though. There are occasional vocals, but they're done well. Like, they're very low in the mix, and they don't overdo it. And there's also smart use of audio clips from films you've probably never heard of, let alone seen. So yeah, like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel, but I would say it's the first Russian post-rock album of this level this year. So, which is nice. I love post-rock. And we already had Mogwai earlier this year, so... But that's not Russian. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, because this post-rock takes a while to get warmed up. I want to find the track that's got some of those audio samples, vocal samples in it. Spasi меня от пустоты is one of them. There's... Where is the audio sample, the vocal sample? Oh, there it is.
Когда человек счастлив, смысл жизни и прочие вечные темы его редко интересуют. Или следует задаваться...
I don't know if they just got, or if they built the song around this sample, but it just feels like it should be there.
Когда наступит этот конец, мы же не знаем. Вот и торопимся.
Which is what I mean, like they choose the vocals and everything. Even though it's post-rock, there shouldn't be any singing. It feels like it should be there still.
А для сохранения простых человеческих истин нужны тайны. Тайны счастья, смерти, любви. Может быть, ты и прав, но попробуй не думай обо всем этом. А думать об этом все равно, что знать.
So yeah, that's EYJA with Вечное возвращение. What I would say is probably the first really good post-rock album out of Russia this year. I know there have been a few others, but this one just feels right. The last metal rock album we have is Gabber Metal by SnowBallMan. I know electronic core is a thing, but most of the artists in the genre, like Electric Callboy and Enter Shikari and stuff like that, they just don't lean as heavily into the electronic aspect of it as I think they could. And then we have Enter Snowman. We have Snowman Ball here. And when I first heard it, I just immediately, I was like, oh, this is rave core or rave punk or something like that, because the electronics are just so there. They're in the front. A lot of that hard bass, that kind of ADHD energy, keyboard and vocal samples. It's just all slapped together with metalcore. And honestly, I avoided listening to this album simply for the album artwork. I wanted to hate it for that. But in the context of the music, what the group is going for, it works. Even with the album artwork, just because the song topics feel like it's something people would love, and I probably would have loved in high school. I would reference mindless self-indulgence, but this is better, and it's more hard. It's harder, and it also, the lyrics aren't as lewd. These are like more straight, like falling in love, like a panda, Zombieland, trust me. Like these are just kind of feel good lyrics, and obviously it's English lyrics too, for those who it matters. But yeah. Right, there's that like hard bass. It's just fun. This is fun metal, and we don't get enough fun metal. We need more of it, and SnowBallMan is doing it. The one thing I will say is that after 15 tracks, it does drag a little bit, but it's fun all the way through. It just kind of starts to feel a bit monotonous, but it's like monotony at a pizza party, right? Like I've already eaten all of the pizza I want to eat. I don't really want any more pizza, but like it doesn't mean the pizza's bad. You just don't really want any more of it. So that's the best analogy I could come up with, but it kind of also feels appropriate. Yeah, I like Gabber Metal, Like a Panda, and Zombieland here are just it's a solid little trio that, yes, really introduces the sound just perfectly. There's that heaviness, but like the lyrics are whatever. Panda show you how. What is it? Doesn't mean anything, but that's okay, right? It's the type of music where if it wasn't for the kind of gimmicky electronics and just over the top rave energy, it would be awful. But the ridiculous lyrics and the kind of regular straight up metalcore with everything, it works perfectly. There we go. Let's get to the chorus. The chorus here is the money part of this song. Okay. Don't be zombie. So, yes, kind of idiotic, but I kind of love it nevertheless. So that's Gabber Metal by Snowman Ball. And with that, we come into the indie pop category. And we don't really have any indie this week, per se. It's all straight up pop. So the first, is rap and hip hop. And I want to talk about this. This is Hell's Paradise 3 by Data 404 and Arlekin 40,000. And I went into this album thinking it was rap and hip hop, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the Russian music community here of what rap is, because this isn't rap. Rap is not just when there's a rhythmic delivery of lines, right? Like that has seeped into the pop music spectrum, right? Like rapping is not just reading the verses in a way that is less melodic. That doesn't really qualify as rap anymore. So I went into this thinking it was rap, and I hated every second of it. And I was trying to figure out what to compare it to in the rap and hip hop community, and I couldn't, because there's just nothing. And the reason it's pop. It's pop music. It's hyper pop, if you want to be more specific. It's just hyper pop that leans heavily into rap style production. There's a lot of the backing music, and a lot of that has rap elements in it, things that we would associate with it, but it is still pop music. I might be pissing off Data 404 and Arlekin 40,000 here, but I guess that's their problem. If they want to LARP as rappers, that's totally fine. But the music they're making is not rap. It's hyper pop. And that's not bad. It's fine. It's good stuff. I know when I started thinking of this as hyper pop music, I started enjoying it a lot more, because it was like, when I was trying to think of it as rap, it was that square in the square peg in the round hole, right? It was just like, it wasn't fitting. I couldn't get it. But the minute I was just like, oh, this is hyper pop. And everything fell into place. And I mean, like, even the song titles, right? Dance Coca-Cola, Eurovision, I'm Fine, Friday 13th. This is that type of hyper pop, like, always online type of nonsense. So you'll hear it. Also, the artwork's very hyper popish, I would say. So, yes, are they rapping here? Kind of. But they're also singing. Okay. Fantastic. Like, this is pop music. Just pop music that's heavily inspired by rap and hip-hop. And you'll hear it on other tracks too. So yeah, I hated this when I was listening to it as a rap album. I enjoyed it while listening to it as a modern hyper-pop album. Yeah, because, like, what the hell is it? Like, I know there's auto-tune and stuff in rap, but, like, this shit does not fly in the long term as a rap album. Go and listen to, like, 100 Gex and tell me that this is that far removed. It's not. Rap. And then one last one here just to drive the point home. They're singing most of the time, so. But it's good. It's not bad. I mean, granted, the lyric, or not the lyrics, the vocals could annoy some, but. But that combination of the hyper pop and the really odd vocals and all the electronic stuff going on there with the kind of heavy trap beats and the other, like, the hip hop style samples, it's an interesting combination. It might have already been done. I'm sure it's already been done in the States or maybe in England or something, but not that I've heard. So yeah, thinking of it as a hyper pop album makes it much more interesting listening experience, I would say. But moving on to, like, pop albums that actually present themselves as pop. We have the first one here by Defne, and the album is Yelan. It's a beautiful pop album. It's female pop music. Part of it is modern electronic dance sounding, and some of it is just more traditional sounds. The key feature here is that it is sung in the Tatar language, and that there's a fair amount of Turkish musical motifs in as well, especially, like, on the last track. I assume that the album is fairly positive. Again, I don't know what it's in the Tatar language, so I don't speak that. But it leaves me feeling good after listening to it. It's quite short. And honestly, when listening to things like this that I understand the appeal of K-pop, right? The entire, like, the desire to just enjoy music for the sake of music, right? Not focusing on the vocals or the lyricist or whatever, and just being able to enjoy everything as a melodic work. So the Tatar language has, at least from the musical end of things, also, I feel, been getting a lot of push on the heels of EYJA, and the success that song from the Slovo Pacana soundtrack had a few years ago. So yeah, just that fun, modern electronic dance style music with just these very light and lovely female vocals, but and I think, does this one have a taste of the more traditional sounds? There we go. Some more Eastern, Turkish sounds, I guess, if you will. So there's also, like I said, kind of a more traditional sound, or that more stripped down pop sound, I guess, is what we would probably call it these days. So yeah, that's Yılan by Defne, so an artist out of Tatarstan, which is where Kazan is. And the last pop album here is by an artist, Dose, and the album is Tete a Tete. This just feels like that funky R&B, funky pop R&B sound like The Weeknd, and it has some rap sections sprinkled throughout here that feel like the early Sad Boy Drake days. Not gonna lie, I really love the Yılan album I just highlighted, but this one right here feels like maybe one of the best pop albums so far of the year. And I know pop and indie I talk about, and I do in my head keep that differentiation. This is pop, right? This is like a pop album, what we would consider a pop album. It's not indie as much. The songs here all have a familiar feel to it, but the music is still, it's really fresh. And honestly, there's not a bad song here. None of the tracks drag in any sort of way. The whole thing is just good all the way through. And you might recognize that Weeknd sound or the early Drake sound. Yeah, it's good. It's just good. There's a few features on here. Also have to point out Skriptanit on the 8th track is probably one of the biggest rappers in Russia right now. So I think Dose might be a producer of some. I don't really know his background. Jump ahead to the chorus. maybe I'll jump ahead to the chorus. Maybe not. Maybe we'll just sit here in silence while the internet through the VPN decides to catch up to things. Or maybe nothing at all. I don't know. Okay, seems like it's buffering now. Okay, all right. It's like I can only jump so far ahead. Okay, whatever. That's super annoying. Anyway, I'll let the next one. I think you get the idea. Ultimately, it's just good pop music, and I feel like we're probably entering that period. I feel like the spring is typically when spring into summer are when the big pop releases tend to happen, because like getting geared up for warm weather when people are going to be outside. And yeah, so I imagine there's going to be some other really good releases coming, but for now, this is a good one too. This is a very Russian pop sound as well too, but you live here as long as I do, you kind of get used to it, accept it. So even without getting to the chorus, I mean, this is basically the melody of the chorus. So yeah, that's Tête à Tête by Dose. Just a really solid pop album, just like the one before it too. And then yeah, we're gonna end with rap this week, because the best album of the week was a rap album. And the first one up though is Project Nova by Fortuna 812. I honestly thought this was going to be another hyperpop album, another one of those misinterpretations where it's like, oh, it's rap, but it's actually hyperpop. I thought that because of the first track, Hollywood Highway, which I'm not going to play. But yeah, just going the whole way through this album, all through 11 tracks, and they're quite short, right? You can see only a few of them are over 2 minutes long. This just feels like the new sound in Russian rap and hip hop, with intense production, which makes sense because Fortuna 812 is actually a producer, first and foremost. And there's a love of all sounds digital, a love of glitches in the music. But what I say is production phenomenal. Biggest surprise for me going into this was I would assume that for somebody who's a producer that the rapping might not be very good. It's actually not bad. It leans in the pop direction, to be sure, but the flow is normal. There are some pretty clever lines in there from time to time. I would say the biggest minus is the nightclub track with Silver Gloria giving a guest verse, which, unless it's poorly delivered irony, it's a guest verse which on the surface glamorizes date raping somebody's drink in a club, which is like the fucking worst thing ever. So I hope that's irony and just Silver Gloria sucks at delivering lines. That's the best explanation, because otherwise Fortuna 812 looks like kind of a sex pest. But ignoring that, or at least his friends are sex pests, I guess, or rapists, I suppose is the correct term there. Ignoring that aspect, the music's good. Assuming it will load. I feel like we're hitting like an hour and a half, and I feel like so much of that time is just me waiting for stuff to load. It's kind of absurd. it leans in the pop direction, right? Kind of has that hyper pop feel I was talking about earlier. But it's definitely more rap. Just not okay. Realistically, there are tracks that probably are just basically straight up pop tracks, but there's enough on here. I feel like, especially in the second half, that is rap still. And yeah, maybe a track like iMessage there is why in the beginning I was thinking it might just be another hyper pop album, but it's more in rap territory. And then the final track, Tony Life, which is a reference to an old criminal, what would it be? Old Danish criminal film. But so yeah, you get the idea. It's that really hyper produced rap, that more modern sound, and that brings us to the penultimate album, which is also very modern and very ultimate, and very hyper produced sound. It's i61's Storytell 2, and I have to say, last year he released the first entry of Storytell, and I was thoroughly unimpressed. It felt like just a pedestrian, wholly forgettable project. This one, however, Storytell 2, is as fun and as interesting as the artwork here. And I'm going to let the artwork get up here. It's something which, when you first look at it, seems, or listen to it, seems very simple. Your eyes, in the case of the picture, or your ears in the case of music, focus in on like one key detail, but then your attention gets taken away to the side. You're like, oh my god, he's on a giant inflatable thing, and oh my god, he's in a mech suit, and wait, why is he holding a television? And like, you start to notice all of these little details. It's not a kaleidoscope, it's not the right term, but it's just this massive collage, basically, where this small nonsensical pieces all fit together into this larger, overwhelming picture, or song, audio, if you will. There's a fixation on Japanese and modern internet culture that is reflected in the artwork, and it's also in the lyrics to a large degree. i61's got some pretty clever lyrics, not gonna lie. He's got a good flow. He can rap really fast too. His dexterity there holds up, and I'm not one of those people that thinks fast rapping is super important, but he does it well, and when it comes through, it actually feels appropriate. Even the rappers that he has featured here on the tracks, I normally don't like them, but they work in the context of the album. So yeah, this one and the next one were both like major releases this last week. And I feel like if they had been released on different weeks, they both would have dominated in their own way, but, well, so this is like a song where he is doing his multiple personalities. And then this song, which I have to point out, features an artist by the name of MM44 Turbo Shitpost Machine. And that is, yes, that is an actual artist. But the track Matrix Reloaded is all about the Matrix. And alternate, or not alternate, but like digital realities. So it's got like a lot of the digital glitches in there as well. Go-kart beat here, but it's not loading. But I'm not going to throw out a comparison because it's probably not fair, but i61 at times, especially on this album, feels like, I don't know, maybe Future or something from back in the day. Different, but just in that like new wave, something new. Like the J-pop sound going on here. So yeah, Storytell 2 by i61, it just jumping around like that feels very chaotic and very disjointed. But when you actually get into it, and especially if you can understand the lyrics and you pull up the go on genius.com and pull up his lyric sheets, it's fun. It's kind of silly. It's just very silly. It's not that serious rap in any sort of way. It's fixated on internet culture and Japan and Korea to some degree. I mean, it uses that vibe. So yeah, it's just entertaining, just like the album artwork is. It's perfectly matched. But yeah, it's definitely not the best rap release. It's not the best release of the week. That's gonna have to go to Brutto here with Métis. Now, Brutto is one half of a legendary kind of here in Russia hip-hop group, Kaspийский Груз. This is his third album, his third solo album, and I would say this is probably the first big rap album of the year. I know a few weeks ago, maybe in January actually, ATL and Katet released Večný двигатель, that kind of heavy industrial sound one, and that's still a phenomenal album, don't get me wrong, but this is a rap album in the sense of a rap album. Brutto's not doing anything experimental here. This is just old school. There's so much storytelling in these lyrics. It's kind of a focus on how difficult life is here in Russia, right? On just the vast number of people and children that grow up poor, and things like that. Brutto is kind of an interesting one. The album is called Métis, right? Kind of like mixed race, because Brutto is mixed race. His mother was, I think she died. His mother was Russian. His father was Tajik. So he was already mixed race there. He grew up in Azerbaijan. So kind of a weird thing there. there's a track where he's talking about which track is it? I think it's Métis. I would assume it's Métis, where he's talking about how when he was a child in Azerbaijan, he was hated because he was too white. And then when he moved to Moscow, when he got a little bit older, he was hated because he was too dark, too black. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of focus on just growing up poor and the difficulties. But there's also an element to this which feels like Rick Ross, right? The oh God, what's the album? Why can't I think of it right now? It was my mind is a blank right now. The album that I'm thinking of is God Forgives, I Don't. When that album came out in 2012, and it just kind of blew everything up for him. And in terms of just the production, the sound, and the storytelling, right? Like that hard, and so much of this album is a mix of that hard street urban sound, but then also the other half is this introspective focus on autobiographical storytelling, or just storytelling in general from other people's points of view. And I have to point out that the Adnajdi On, this track right here, is getting a lot of attention, and it's totally fair, because it's kind of a critique of a lot of shit that's happening right now. Basically, it is a story, and it's a story of somebody who is arrested for a small crime here in Russia, something which is probably not something that you would get sent to prison for in other cases or whatever, but they get sent to prison, and when they're in prison, it's hellish and they don't want to be in there. So in 2025, or what the story would be like in 2023, 2024, they sign a contract and they go off to war. And then, of course, the story does not end well for them, right? They're either broken or dead or disappeared at the end of it. So it's focused on small time, kind of not dangerous, petty criminals, I guess we might say, and what has happened to a lot of them, right? The whole get out of jail free card was not what it was meant out, or what it was made out to be. And that most of those people are either dead or broken physically or mentally and emotionally. So Adnajdi On, I'm not going to feature it right here, but it's definitely, from a storytelling point of view, it's one that has just gotten a lot of attention, and rightfully so. It is moving, but it's like one of those you have to listen to from start to finish. Yeah. In terms of just sound, I can just jump into a few of them, though, and you'll get the idea here. So, Chorna Rabochi, I'm going more for the Rick Ross sound. The introspective stuff is still there, but it's, again, the type of track where you need to actually sit and listen to it to enjoy it. Yes. Let it load. And there is definitely, he did most of the production for this as well, so the beats are going to have some of that maybe Eastern sound. And his lines are fucking sharp a lot of the time. Just yeah, that, I don't know, it's just like a classic sound to me. And I'm getting to be an old head when it comes to hip hop and rap, but I feel like, with each advancing year, it becomes less and less common to some degree. So getting an album like this with this type of production and this level of lyricism, and this level of earnestness in the lyrics is fantastic. All right, one last one here, and then we'll wrap it up. But yeah, the album is Métis by Brutto of the rap group Kaspijski Gruz. Also really good stuff, but focused on new albums right now.
Но наш смотрящий некрасивый пожилой грузин не путал берега, знаю нравы. Слева берег левый, справа берег ультраправый. Двигались мимо управы, бродили отрядами. Мои ребята с нетолерантными взглядами. Вырубил на автомате, их уронил, с них поднял по дельбе. Цыгане — это картель. Забрал кису из дома, везу в отель.
So, yeah. Again, Métis by Brutto, probably the best rap album of the year thus far. It's 17 tracks. It's just solid all the way through. It's going to be a hard one to dethrone. So we'll see if anything happens. And honestly, it's the best album of the week just for sheer size and quality and production. Just so much good stuff going on here. So now, obviously, if you don't understand Russian lyrics, then I mean that's kind of a bummer. It's gonna take away from that a little bit. But just again, from a musical point of view, if you enjoy rap music, you can probably still enjoy that album. But okay, we have been going at this for much longer than I intended. I keep thinking of ways to potentially streamline everything here, but I also cannot get YouTube to open back up again. Okay, there it is. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll be back on Sunday evening to talk what's been happening in politics over here over the last week. And yeah, I cannot get YouTube open, which is disconcerting. And if you haven't checked it out, I actually have a video up on the channel where I compare prices of foods between Russia and the States. Long story short, just go watch it. Yeah, I should probably start working on another video here, but we'll get to that in the near future. As it is, I guess hopefully you found something to listen to. I'll be back next week with more music, or on Sunday with the news for the week. So until next time, whenever I see you again, have a nice day, evening, whatever time of the day it is. And yeah, take care of yourselves.